Good morning, everyone. Today we're checking out a brand new video from the film test about what the heck is Smilehood. Let's hop in and see what we can figure out.
The creator of The Boiled One and the Oddity Compendium is back with a brand new analog horror video that picks up the earliest bits of lore he ever created. And this weird, terrifying new video has got me asking, what the heck is Smilehood?
We're gonna find out. Good children watch.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, the show that's turning 10 years old this month. Yeah, really. On June 2nd, 2015, Matt, Steph, and the rest of theorists launched this brand new channel, bringing our unique brand of overthinking to the film.
Holy damn, it's been 10 years.
In television industry. I've actually been a part of this channel since the very beginning, believe it or not. I was both a writer and editor for Theorist in these early days of film theory, and worked on multiple videos in and around the launch. In fact, Matt first told me about film theory when I first joined the team, back when the idea of a channel dedicated to theories about movies was really novel. Man, how times have changed. Anyway, we have something really cool planned to celebrate the 10th anniversary of film theory later in the year that we just couldn't quite get done in time for June. But I wanted to call it out all throughout the month. A lot of awesome people have poured their blood, sweat, heart, and tears into film theory. And it's just such an honor to be a part of it. And one of the big things film theory has always covered is independent analog horror. And today is no different, loyal theorists, as we dive into Smilehood, the latest project from Dr. Nowhere. If you don't know,
So is this technically the third project from Dr. Nowhere, or is this just the third part of his collection?
Dr. Nowhere is a man named Silas Orion, one of the incredible newer analog horror creators here on YouTube, though he has a years-long and very impressive catalog of work over on other platforms like Instagram.
Oh yeah,
I gotta say, I just love his art style. It strikes that right balance of familiar, surreal, and uncanny that just hits perfect for unsettling horror.
Very Silicon Valley.
Silas exploded onto the YouTube scene last year with a video called The Boiled One, which he followed up with the Oddity Compendium. We actually did theories about both of those last year. Go check them out, and I've been itching to jump back into more of Silas's work. Really, I was just waiting for the right time, and oh boy, has the right time ever arrived. Bursting into the room like a freaking jump scare, my guys. Just a few weeks ago, Silas released Smilehood Conception, a brand new video that's, well, okay, this one's weird. There's a lot of very surreal imagery and atmospheric music, but most importantly, it features the return of the Locust, a monstrous entity that first appeared in Silas's earliest videos here on YouTube.
Oh yeah. There it is.
Yeah, just absolutely creepy stuff, right? I'm gonna be upfront with you here, loyal theorists. We don't have all the answers for this one yet. We are truly getting in on the ground floor of this new story, and I want to solve it with you. I want us to go through each of these videos in this series so far together, look at all of the clues and symbolism we can find, and try to figure out what the heck is going on here in Smilehood. And just from the pieces I've been able to put together so far, this is a tragic story of loss, resulting in a monster that eats you from your very phone and computer screen. Alright, let's work together, loyal theorists, and dive into the mystery of the Locust and Smilehood. So, as always, let's run through the videos to start with.
Oh, I could have said, let's turn that frown upside down.
So we're all on the same page about what's going on and break down what we can along the way. The first video in the series is actually the very first one that Dr. Nowhere uploaded to his channel, Concept Toe 1. Honestly, this one is pretty straightforward, but we see some entity in a room with beige wallpaper. It's giving like desaturated back rooms, and I love it. The entity, which has been dubbed the Locust.
I mean, that kind of wallpaper is like what you'd see in like a grandma's house that was built in 1956 or so.
Is looking straight at us through the screen, and it's slapping the glass. Yeah, there's a creepy blackened human hand repeatedly slamming the glass, cracking it, but the video cuts off just before it's completely shattered. And honestly, just really quick before we keep going, I have to say, I love the way Silas has mixed mediums here. The unsettling art he made combined with the almost rotoscoped human hand is really cool and just really accomplishes the horror feel. The second video, Concept Toe 2, has a bit more meat when it comes to the actual events happening on screen. Here, we open on someone filming either a window or a screen or something like that, and on the other side is the Locust, who keeps saying hello. Incredibly creepy. The person filming says hello back, but doesn't really get a reaction. Eventually, and understandably, he asks the Locust to just go away, but is also like the chillest man ever about it.
Please go away.
Like, I don't know about you, but I just have like a little bit more urgency in my voice there, but, you know, whatever. Anyway, the Locust eventually...
You know, that would actually be like an interesting concept for a horror movie. It's like a group of friends that all get scared and terrified, but they don't ever like scream or get scared. well, they do get scaled, but they don't like scream scaled or anything like that. And so just like, hey, you're scaring me. Can you please leave me alone? Like that kind of thing.
We start slapping against the glass of the monitor or window or whatever, scaring the person filming. The glass shatters and the locust enters the room. He chases the person filming to a closet where he hides, but the locust finds him and eventually charges him. The narrator almost certainly dies here. Finally, we end on a broken screen with text reading, "The body appeared untouched." Then we have the third video, unsurprisingly named Concept Toe 3. Here we open on what looks like old photographs.
You know, I actually wonder, is Toe like... Ooh, Jesus, that just scared me. Is Toe meant to be like some kind of acronym or something, like type of entity?
Of some strange room and art made by kids. It's very vintage, very Instagram circa 2012.
Definitely
and just to note,
vintage.
This looks like the same wallpaper we saw in the background of the locust in the first video. We're told to get up, to
Okay, yes it is, it's just a little tough to tell because of how bright it is.
rise and shine, and that good children are up bright and early.
Hey, sorry if y'all hear any extra noise, my Discord is apparently going off.
Good children do play pretend, but do not play with their food until it's all gone. All throughout this part of the video, we see images of the locust interspersed with everything else that we see, as well as a heart dangling inside of the same room with the locust. The video then suddenly cuts to an old school, AIM-esque chat log between the point of view character and someone named Dominic9999. However, Dominic is acting strangely. Dominic has been more distant lately, and his typing has become very choppy and weird, and our POV character has been seriously worried because of it. Despite it being 1 a.m., Dominic asks for a video chat, which the POV reluctantly agrees to. However, when he answers the call, it's not Dominic, it's the locust. Clearly, the locust has taken over Dominic somehow, and now he's come for this POV character too. The screen cuts out.
So that must mean that Dominic was the guy in the second video.
And we again see the same beating heart. As captions read, none of it makes any sense. Everything inside was gone. So, okay, let's take a step back here and go over everything that's happened and what we can figure out from it, because once we get into Smilehood, things get way weirder. First off, somehow the locust is moving from place to place through computer screens. When I first watched Toe 2, I wasn't sure if this was supposed to be a monitor or like a window or something else, but after Toe 3, this is absolutely a computer screen, and this is actually further confirmed in the Instagram version of Toe 1. Here, the caption reads, "Thing that is trapped behind a screen that will eat your organs if it breaks out." So, makes sense, and that's why he's slapping against the glass. The second part of that caption also explains why the locust is even doing this, going from place to place and killing these people. And also, the captions in the videos suddenly make a lot more sense, right? Quote, "The body appeared untouched, and everything inside was gone?" Clearly, though the exterior of these bodies remains somewhat intact, the locust is harvesting their inner organs. I also wouldn't be surprised.
Now that actually gives a new question. How is it, getting all those organs without, cutting the body open in some way? Unless it's doing something, some weird shit like in Smile, where it's going in through the mouth.
If the hand we saw in the first video, though the one that was like strangely human looking, I wouldn't be surprised if that was literally an arm that the locust stole. But why?
Probably.
Why is the locust going from place to place, screen to screen, taking these organs? Simple.
Hunger?
He hungers.
Yeah,
During the AIM chat we see, the locust explains that he's starving. Help. Seems pretty straightforward, and this actually even fits with the name. Locust insects are known to emerge in giant swarms and consume crops. They can cause serious damage to a community's agriculture, so the fact that the locust in this series is doing the same, but to people, it just makes sense. Also, while we're on the subject, you know how I just said that the locust said that he was starving? Help? Well, that was actually the old name of the original video, Toe 1. Yeah, actually the names for all three of these videos have since changed. Originally, back when I was first looking into them, doing research for the boiled one, Toe 1, 2, and 3 were called Starving.Help, Love.Thumper, and Making.Friends, respectively. Silas has since gone back and renamed them to the consistent Toe 1, 2, 3 naming scheme, and I'm not sure we can call any of
so Toe is not short for type of entity, my mistake.
Old information canon anymore. But it is worth noting regardless. And one more thing to note before we move on here, but a detail that you might have missed. These videos are being watched by someone, and I don't mean us, the viewer on YouTube. In both Toe 2 and Toe 3, there are moments where we see an old school volume bar on the screen, as if someone is turning up or down the volume. volume. Someone watching these tapes back. But
That's someone
who?
else,
Well, in the
but not the
description of
only
each
one.
of these videos, it says, courtesy of the Organet Enterprise.
Organet?
T-O-E. Get it? Toe?
Oh, okay. So I was right, it was an acronym, but I was wrong about what the acronym actually was.
Organet Enterprise is
Okay,
clearly some sort
okay.
of organization collecting information about the Locust, and perhaps other similar entities and anomalies. There isn't a ton of proof of this yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if this
Like
was
the
an
SCP
organization
Foundation.
similar to the SCP Foundation or the Ephrata branch from the Boiled One video. So, okay,
Got
how
it,
does any of
got
this
it.
connect to the
Okay.
new video, Smilehood? Well, let's dive into it, loyal theorists, because this
Let's
one
dive
is
on in.
strange. Smilehood is way more non-linear and experimental than the other Toe videos, so we're going to be jumping around here a little bit to group up a lot of what it shows just to get more context for things. We start out with
Please
what
do.
looks like an old school television set flashing. In the static, we can see things like the Locust in its room, but maybe more
With a massive
interestingly, I
Hulk.
might be seeing things here, but I think you can see a face in the reflection of the TV here. It might just be some artifacting or something else weird going on, but given the fact that we've established that something is watching these other
maybe.
tapes, I wanted to point it out. Here, you can see it a little bit more clearly if you lower the contrast and up the brightness.
Oh,
but
there you
anyway,
go.
moving on. Suddenly, the TV switches to a
Yeah, that is something.
weird slideshow of several buildings. Some look like apartment complexes, others like other residential buildings, but one of them has a sign reading Smilehood Institute for Exceptional Children. Now, that name
Huh,
might
like some
look
kind of
familiar to you,
school?
partially because it's the title of the video, but also because we've seen it before. In Toe 3, there was an ad for something called Smilehood embedded into the old school AIM chat service. This one
Oh,
looked
yeah,
way more
look
like
at
some
that.
sort of toy, or at least something that came inside of a box instead of an institute, though. I
Like some kind of supplement.
wonder if Smilehood in this world is some sort of multi-conglomerate brand. Like, you know how in our world that Disney has their brand of movies and toys and hotels
Yeah.
and parks and the like?
That's
Maybe
true.
Smilehood is similar here. Anyway, all of these buildings clearly look like some sort of school or home for gifted or troubled kids, and I bet that a lot of these images are supposed to be of the Smilehood complex. For example, one of them has a
Definitely.
basketball hoop on the side of one of the buildings. It would just make sense for that sort of thing to be in a communal home or school like Smilehood.
Yeah,
the television
somewhere
from
kids
earlier
could
also
play
has
with
like
it.
a sticker or a pin that looks like a flower on it, so it could be inside of Smilehood or some way related to it. Either way, that one does feel like it's in a child's room of some sort, right? On the other side of
Completely.
things, though, we also get a bunch of images of very rural-looking buildings and deserts. A small home in a field, and animated shots of a barren wasteland, and a farmhouse
Animated.
out in the desert. There are a lot of these shots, but one with a dead tree cut down in the sand, its branches gnarled and looking almost like the locust. There's also a fly that buzzes
kinda.
by here, which may or may not be a nod to the entity, but anyway. There's a man in a couple of these
You
shots,
never know.
looking out over the cliff in the desert behind the farmhouse. Another shot shows him inside at a table, looking upset over some sort of paper. On the wall in this shot, we can see a photograph of the man and a woman holding onto him affectionately. This could either be his wife or daughter, but I'm going to guess wife just because of
Divorce or death certificate.
how they're framed. Anyway, this man's name is likely Arlo Bloom. The very last shot of the video shows this man much older while we hear this voiceover.
What else is there to say about Arlo Bloom?
And also, Arlo just looks much creepier here in this shot, like his face is sunken in and he's twitching a lot. Something ain't right with this man. Intercut
Yeah,
with
there's
all of
something
these
in
shots
him.
are several images and clips of
Or some that replaced him.
the Locust entity, still trapped in his room next to the giant beating heart. In some instances, he's calling out hello over and over.
Don't I-
But in others, he's just sitting alone in silence, though he does seem to notice us watching and look straight at the camera. There's also a shot of what looks like a bunch of organic tissue or tubes,
Ooh,
and what looks
that
like the
is
bottom
something.
of a chin. I think that this is the inner workings of the Locust, but I mean, it is a little bit hard to tell just from what we see here. Elsewhere in the video, we also see a couple of shots of flowers, and I'm not just talking about the sticker on the TV from the beginning. When we first see them,
Yeah.
they're stuck into the ground next to this lake or ocean. It almost looks like they were put there by a couple or family or something. But later
They're all three of them.
on, the second time we see a flower, it's all by itself, off in the distance.
Oh,
This struck
and look at that. There's a grasshopper up though. Oh, and surprisingly, locusts are actually of the same family
Be
species.
way more like some sort of grave marker than a plant. Though I did have a bit of trouble pinpointing exactly what these are supposed to be. From my closest estimation, these flowers look like yellow roses. If you don't know, flowers have a whole language of symbolism associated with them in literature and mythology.
Damn right
and
they do.
Interestingly, yellow roses are supposed to represent joy and happiness. So, isn't it fascinating that we see the number of flowers continuing to dwindle as the video goes on? It's also worth calling out that in the shot of the single flower off in the distance, the one that kind of looked like a grave, connecting some dots here, but perhaps the woman in the picture we talked about earlier, the one with Arlo, well, what if she was killed? That would kind of make sense to bury her and
So
then
that's
have this
certificate.
flower marking that
I was
grave,
kind of right.
But if that is the case, what killed her? Well, in this shot, we
The
see
locust?
a tree and its branches in the foreground, and on that tree, we see a locust, as in the insect. It's haunting the space over this grave, so is this symbolic of that locust entity causing that death? And just
I would
before we
say
move on
so.
here, but there is a final shot of a single flower inside of a vase that's been knocked to the ground. But honestly, this flower looks way different from any of the other ones we've seen in the series. If I had to guess, this one is actually a turnera. Notice how they both have 5 petals. In
Oh,
flower
yeah.
symbology, the
Okay.
turnera is meant to represent beauty and endurance, which makes this one in the vase grayed out and almost withering away a bit more ironic, doesn't it? Now, flowers aren't the only
Yeah,
weird symbolic
like the
thing in this
end of
video
it.
either. At one point, we see a shot of a fruit in the dirt with a big bite
Hey, that's a pomegranate, I believe.
taken out of the bottom of it. At first, I thought that this might be some sort of like a red onion or something. I mean, they do have layers,
Oh,
but
God.
the more I looked at it, the more I actually think that this is a pomegranate.
Yeah,
Notice how
exactly.
both this
It's a
and a real
pomegranate.
pomegranate have the weird area at the top where a stem would come out of it. And the inside of this fruit in Smilehood looks juicy, for the lack of a better word.
Looks
That's
bloody.
very in line with pomegranates, and would also fit with the horror element of the series, because I mean, the interior of a pomegranate just looks, well, it looks bloody. That really
Yeah,
just works with
exactly.
a series about a monster stealing organs, right? Anyway, just like flowers, a lot of fruit also have symbolic meanings, and a pomegranate's meaning? Fertility, life, and rebirth. So, this fruit having a big old bite taken out of it before being discarded in the dirt? It's like something has taken a bite out of something's life and thrown it away. Maybe like the locust and that woman. Food for thought, one
Oh,
could say.
yeah.
So, okay, that was kind of a lot, and it was really weird. But what's the story here? What can we put together from all of these small, scattered, disparate pieces? Well, I believe that Arlo Bloom was in charge of, or some employee of the Smilehood Institute. He had a loving wife, someone important in his life that brought him a lot of joy, just like we see.
With the pomegranate also symbolizing fertility, there could have been a chance that Arlo and his wife were trying to have a child, and maybe after years of struggling, and yet they were finally able to be pregnant. But just before the child could come to term, there were complications, requiring her to be hospitalized. But in the end, the child didn't make it, and possibly the mother didn't as well, or she could have ended up taking her own life via stress from all of this, leaving Arlo to be alone.
Symbolized with the yellow roses. The locust, however, may have been some sort of child at the Smilehood Institute. Someone twisted and mutated into this monstrosity. How that happened, I can't say, but at the very least, I can say that he is a kid, and there's a ton of evidence for that. First off, throughout the videos, we see several shots of a toy inside of the locust's room.
Look at that.
This is one of those activity cubes, which has different functions on each side to keep a young child's attention. At
Those
least
things
here
are
in the
nice.
States, I remember these things popping up at the dentist or doctor's offices in the lobby to keep toddlers occupied, so it would make sense for somewhere like Smilehood to have these toys, and therefore that the locust would also have one if he's a kid at the Institute. Secondly, remember how I said that the titles and descriptions for all of these videos with the locust changed? Well, originally
Yeah.
the description for Making.Friends read, "It's a kid in there, presumably talking about the locust." This would also explain why he wants to make friends, his childish way of speaking, how he's constantly craving attention and calling out hello. It all just makes sense as something a lost kid would do. And I might even go out on a limb here and say that the locust is Arlo Bloom's very own child. In that same shot where we see the photo of Arlo and his wife, we also see one of a male figure playing an instrument. It kind of looks like a horn or a saxophone or something.
That is
could
some kind
be
of
Arlo
horn.
himself playing the instrument, but this really reminded me of the sort of photos you would have of your child while they're in a school band or something like that. But the thing that really cements this connection between Arlo and the locust for me, why I think that they're connected, perhaps even father and child, in the shot where we see Arlo looking out over the desert, take a listen to the sounds of nature in the background. Do you hear that sort of insect chirping? That is a locust, like the real-world bug.
I was actually going to point out that it sounded almost like there was some kind of heartbeat going on.
But here, compare it to this.
Yeah, that is a locust.
At the very least, Silas is drawing a direct connection between Arlo and the Locust here, and like I said in my analysis of the actual video, that connection is almost certainly the loss of Arlo's wife, perhaps at the hands of the Locust itself. This would explain the symbolism we see with the flowers and the pomegranate. This child of Arlo and his wife, represented by rebirth in the pomegranate, has killed his wife, thus taking away Arlo's joy. And now, Arlo's basically lost his sanity because of it. Silas draws a lot of symbolism in his videos from darker human emotions like fear and guilt, like we see in videos like The Boiled One and Boy in the Bath. That's probably playing a role here in this story too, with the locust representing that sort of grief of losing a loved one. Again, there's a lot here that I don't think we can quite put together yet, or at least I couldn't. Like, there are a few pieces I noticed that I don't know where they quite go yet. For example, there are a few other breadcrumbs with the locust on Silas's Instagram page that I didn't include here because I wasn't sure just how canon they were. And in tow too, after the volume on the tape is turned down all the way, we hear a heartbeat. That tells me that whoever was watching this video back was terrified of the locust, which, I mean, fair, he's scary. But there's also a giant heart next to the locust in his room, and that seems like more than a coincidence to me, even if I can't quite make the connection. Like, is that implying that the locust is the one watching the videos of his own murders? Is he the face that I caught a glimpse of in the reflection of that TV? I'm just not quite sure yet, and I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments if you're able to connect some of these dots that I'm just not seeing.
Maybe
either way, I'm
trying to learn from his mistakes or
know
something?
that Silas has just packed so much into the story, and I just cannot wait to see where he goes with it next. But until then, remember that it's all just a theory. A film theory. And thanks for 10 years, guys. Up next on...
Alright everyone, that's going to be the end of today's video, and I hope you all enjoyed. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Link to the original will be in the description below, and I'll see y'all next time when we flick back on. Till then, this is Fox, signing out. Peace.